a quick overview. On Monday, the President issued a proclamation calling on the nation to celebrate the contributions of Black Americans, honor the legacies and achievements of generations past, reckon with centuries of injustice, and confront those injustices that still fester today. The President, Vice President, and First Lady, Second Gentleman, Cabinet officials, and White House staff will host meetings and activities this month centered around the 2022 Black History Month theme, Black Health and Wellness. This includes a focus on physical wellness, mental health, environmental justice, economic growth, and spiritual wellness. White House senior staff will also host important stakeholder discussions on diversity in media, veteran wellness, and increased support for HBCU students. Last but certainly not least, we will celebrate and acknowledge the invaluable role Black faith leaders have played in communities across the nation, particularly during the COVID-19 pandemic. This is, of course, just a brief overview. Stay tuned for more announcements. Zeke, with that, why don't you kick us off?
Thanks, Jen. The announcement this morning that the President authorized the deployment of 3,000 troops to Europe. The President previewed that announcement last week and then ordered it today. Is there some new piece of information or intelligence that he saw in the last few days that sort of went from being a notional thing to something that to an actual deployment?
I would not read this as a decision made based on any events over the last 48 hours or couple of days. We've been in discussion and under discussion with our partners and allies in the region where these troops are going for several weeks now. And I would just outline for you, I know some of you may have watched John Kirby's briefing, but just to give some more specifics, the 1,000 service members from the U.S. Army's 2nd Cavalry Regiment, which is based in Germany, will reposition to Romania in the coming days. Secretary Austin had discussed this possibility and this deployment to Romania last week in his conversation with the Romanian Defense Minister. Second, we are moving 1,700 service members from Fort Bragg to Poland and approximately 300 service members from Fort Bragg to Germany. Both of these moves are to supplement existing U.S. force presence in Poland and Germany. These forces are separate and in addition to the 8,500 personnel in the United States on heightened alert position posture that we announced last week. But I would also note, Zeke, just to finish answering your question, that the President has been clear since the beginning of the escalation and the building of troops at the border, and been directly clear with President Putin, as he was in early December. If Russia stays on an escalatory path, which they clearly have, we will make force posture adjustments to deter and defend against any aggression. This is not troops that will go into Ukraine. They're not fighting in Ukraine. This is us, this is the United States abiding by our commitments under Article 5 to support, reassure our partners in the region.
What is the milestone the President's looking for those troops to come back home? What is is it if Russia de-escalates, those troops would go back to their bases? Is that?
Well, I think as you touched on, it's not permanent. They're not intended to be permanent. And again, we already had troop presence in all of these countries where we are doing an increase in troops. So I can't give you an evaluation. Obviously, if Russia decides to de-escalate, to take de-escalatory steps, then certainly that would impact what the force posture needs are in other parts of the region.
Senator Hawley was at the statement today saying that the President should sort of take NATO membership off the table for Ukraine, and that wasn't in U.S. interest to do that. Do you think that sort of rhetoric or sort of position by a U.S. senator right now is helpful in this showdown between the West and Russia?
Well, if you are just digesting Russian misinformation and parroting Russian talking points, you are not aligned with long-standing bipartisan American values, which is to stand up for the sovereignty of countries like Ukraine but others, their right to choose their own alliances, and also to stand against, very clearly, the efforts or attempts or potential attempts by any country to invade and take territory of another country. That applies to Senator Hawley, but it also applies to others who may be parroting the talking points of Russian propagandist leaders.
On a different topic, there's been a lot of reporting the last couple of days about how the U.S. is setting it on a per capita basis with peer developed countries. The death rate in the United States is far outpacing what's being seen abroad, largely as a result of the lower vaccination and boosting rates here, as well as some other comorbidities and the like. But does the President feel that he bears responsibility that, a year into office, with this new wave, that the U.S. wasn't better prepared and that more people are dying here on a per capita basis than are in Europe, for instance?
Well, the buck always stops with the President, and he would say that. But I would also tell you, Zeke, that the steps that we have taken to make progress, to prepare in the United States far outweigh what almost any other country in the world has done to date. That includes ensuring that 87% of the population has had at least one dose, continuing to increase the number of people who are boosted, ensuring we are taking steps to keep our schools open, to make sure communities that have surges have federal resources they need. So, of course, we are still at war with a virus. That is continuing, and that is the president's top priority. He has said that before. But I would also note all the steps that we have taken to ensure we are prepared as we have ups and downs in this pandemic.
And sorry, one last one. Yesterday you mentioned that it's the policy of the administration not to no longer comment on conversations with Joe Manchin about...
I didn't say Joe Manchin. I said, you're often asked me about Joe Manchin. So I think that was the context of the question, which is absolutely fine. But it is our policy to not give specifics or to try not to give specifics of private conversations the president is having with members of the Senate, members of Congress. There are times, I know yesterday, of course, we had Senator Grassley and Senator Durbin here, and we did a pool spray of that. So you may say that's contradictory, but our effort and our focus is on making progress, and sometimes that means keeping those conversations private. Oftentimes it does.
So I'm just curious, this is a shift from where you were a few months ago. Is that only because the Build Back Better bill failed? Is that why this policy has changed?
I think it's a recognition that a lot more progress can be made when you're having private discussions, and that the president's focus in terms of what we're publicly communicating, how he's speaking to the American people, needs to be on what he's doing to make their lives better, not constant updates on the legislative process. Go ahead.
Thank you, Jen. On the troops that were deployed
Sure.
today, you've said that they aren't going to be fighting. They'll be there to offer support. Can you offer any details about exactly what they will be doing there? And also about the distribution to these specific countries, why these 3 places and why the 2,000 versus 1,000?
Sure. Well, to be clear, they're not going to Ukraine to fight, right? So I know that's what you were asking, but just for clarity for the transcript purposes. Our effort and our objective here has been to ensure we are ready for every contingency. And force posture increases as part of that preparedness. It's to reassure our allies, to whom, as I've said, we have a sacred obligation. This force, or these forces who have gone, are trained and equipped for a variety of missions to deter aggression and to reassure and defend our allies. In terms of why the specific numbers, I'd really point you to the Department of Defense, who makes the recommendations and ultimately, proposes for the president's sign-off. I would note that a number of our NATO allies have recently announced troop movements as well, similar to what was announced this morning. So, including the United Kingdom, France, Spain, Denmark, and the Netherlands, of their intent to deploy additional forces to reinforce NATO's eastern flank as well. So, this is a reflection of our robust capabilities and our ability to distribute them across Europe, but it's also consistent with what a lot of our NATO partners are doing.
John Kirby said that the Pentagon has not ruled out deploying additional troops. Under what conditions would that happen?
These, again, are these decisions were based on close consultations with our partners in the region, the countries where these troops have been deployed to, of course, and also the escalatory actions by Russia. But, obviously the president is meeting with his national security team on nearly a daily basis, and we'll make evaluations as needed.
And then changing topics, Senator Lujan has been hospitalized after suffering a stroke. In addition to offering well wishes, of course, some of his Democratic colleagues have said this is a reminder that in such a close Senate, any unexpected development could be a challenge to moving forward their agenda. So has the president spoken with Senator Lujan, and does he share similar concerns?
Not at this point. Let me just reiterate, I know you referenced them, but that we have all been thinking of Senator Lujan and his family. I know his team put out an update on his recovery last night, and he's 49 years old, so I would also note that, but I would point you to them for any specifics on his status. Of course, we're thinking about him, his family, his entire team at this point in time. I'm not sure what you were referring to in terms of concerns about...
For example, Senator Coons brought up yesterday that this could be a challenge for moving forward, since that 50-50 split is so critical. So, is that something that the president has also considered?
Well, life is precious, as we know. You're most familiar with the average age of senators in the Senate, but that is true on both sides of the aisle. So I would just say we spend most of our time engaging in good faith about the president's agenda and not making those calculations.
And then just one more on the Supreme Court. Given the president's commitment to diversify it, will he make similar pledges? Should he have another opportunity to nominate someone? For example, there's never been an Asian American justice or an LGBTQ justice. So will he make a similar pledge?
Well, I would say that about judges or just in general, I would say that if you look at the president's record of judges, circuit court judges, lower court judges, it speaks for itself. He has had a enormous number of judges he has nominated who are people of color, who are women. He has nominated and confirmed an extraordinarily diverse bench of qualified individuals to serve on the courts. And that is certainly a priority for him. I don't have any new pledges to announce for you, but I think I would point you to his record, which speaks to his commitment to ensuring the court is more diverse, lower courts are more diverse, the higher courts are more diverse, and that is something he certainly will continue to look at as a priority.
Thanks, Jen.
Go ahead.
Thank you.
Oh, sorry, I'll come back to you. Go ahead.
I was just going to ask another follow-up on the troop movements.
Yeah.
Is President Biden concerned that Putin might use them as a pretext to act against Ukraine?
Well, I think what's important to be very clear about here is that there is one aggressor here. That aggressor is Russia. They are the ones who have gathered tens of thousands of troops on the border. They are the ones who are threatening to invade a sovereign country. NATO is a defensive alliance. The steps and actions we are taking are to provide reassurance and readiness to our partners in the region. If President Putin and the Russians decide to de-escalate, that would be a welcome step.
A follow-up on the energy issue. Qatar has said it will divert cargoes if needed, but needs the U.S. to help mediate changes in supply contracts. Who is the U.S. talking to about diverting supplies, and are any countries willing to forgo their Qatari supplies to help Europe?
I certainly understand the question. I would just note that we're talking to a range of countries and suppliers, not any one individual country. Obviously, Qatar is a large supplier of oil in the world, so that is certainly a statement of fact. But I don't have anything about our private conversations to read out from here.
And just a quick final one: does Biden plan to watch the Olympics? U.S. athletes competing. I think it starts Friday.
Yes, absolutely. We all do. I'm not going to rule out an Olympics outfit here. I would encourage all of you to do the same. Yes, we are looking forward to it and to cheering on our American athletes who will be competing. Go ahead.
Just one more on the troop movements. Can you explain a bit more why the president decided to move unilaterally before NATO approved a multilateral deployment? I mean, you've talked often in here about how fiercely united the U.S. is with our NATO allies. Is there a concern that this undercuts that sense of unity?
Absolutely not. And this is an important question because a lot of our NATO partners have taken a similar step. In fact, 5 other of our NATO allies have taken steps. The United Kingdom, France, Spain, Denmark, and the Netherlands have all said they have the intent to deploy additional forces to reinforce NATO's eastern flank. So these decisions can be made on a unilateral basis by the United States or any of our NATO partners to boost up support. And obviously the NATO alliance as a whole would decide if there was going to be a movement of the NATO alliance forces. So this is something that we have always had the capability to do, as all these other countries do as well. And it's an option in addition to what we've done to support and plus up our NATO partners, our NATO alliance.
I think it's still not clear though then why. I mean, I know you've been addressing this here, but why now then? Given that you're saying there's no new evidence that's come to light necessarily, it's not that you have a sense that Putin is going to invade any more so than you thought a few days ago.
That's true, but and I just noted that it wasn't an event because I think the way Zeke asked the question in the last day or two or over the weekend or something like that. This has been under discussion for some time now with our NATO partners and of course within the administration. It is also true that there's no question that Russia and President Putin has continued to take escalatory, not de-escalatory steps. So it is not that it is one moment. We are looking at events over the course of time.
And at the risk of sounding like a broken record, on the Supreme Court search, has the president made any plans to meet in person with any of the nominees? Has he had any direct conversations with any of these potential candidates yet?
We're just not going to provide updates from here on the process. Certainly meeting with the nominees will be, well, obviously with the nominee, but meeting with candidates will be a part of the process, but I don't expect we'd provide a play-by-play on that from here. Go ahead, Caitlin.
Thanks, Jen. 2 weeks ago at his press conference, the president said, quote, "We're going to actually increase troop presence in Poland and Romania if, in fact, he moves," referring to President Putin. He has not moved yet to invade Ukraine as far as we know. So can you explain in the last 2 weeks why that calculus has changed for President Biden?
Well, I wouldn't say the calculus has changed as much as we look at a range of events over the course of time. And there's no question that if you look at President Putin's actions, they have been escalatory, not de-escalatory. But clearly, this has been a topic of discussion from among our national security team and also between our national security team and their counterparts for some time now.
Is the president worried that Putin is going to try to invade a NATO ally?
The president wants to, we're certainly hopeful he would not, but the president wants to take steps to reassure our countries in the region that are part of the NATO alliance. And, you know, Russia as a country, President Putin is a leader who has invaded two sovereign countries in the last several years. You know, he's somebody who's used chemical weapons. He's somebody who has pushed propaganda around the world. We're not predicting that he has made a decision. We don't know that, but we're also taking steps to be ready and to be prepared.
Are removing these forces that are now being deployed, is that contingent on Putin removing his troops from Ukraine's border?
Removing, these troops in Eastern Europe?
1,000 troops that the president is sending to NATO allies that he signed off on yesterday. Is that contingent on Putin de-escalating, not just de-escalating, but actually removing his troops from Ukraine?
Well, if President Putin took de-escalatory steps, that certainly would impact our calculus. But I don't have anything to outline from here. That's obviously a decision and recommendations that would be made by the Department of Defense.
Okay, one last question. Last week, I believe in here you said that the assessment still was that a Russian invasion is imminent. That's the word that you had used before, that other officials have used, and you used it last week. But yesterday, the ambassador to the United Nations, Linda Thomas-Greenfield, said she would not use the word imminent. She said she does not think a Russian invasion of Ukraine is imminent. So I guess we just need some clarification on where that assessment stands right now.
I used that once. I think others have used that once, and then we stopped using it because I think it sent a message that we weren't intending to send, which was that we knew that President Putin had made a decision. I would say the vast majority of times I've talked about it, we said he could invade at any time. That's true. We still don't know that he's made a decision.
Okay, so you're not using that word.
I think I used it once last week.
But the decision now is that you're not describing it as imminent anymore.
I haven't in over a week.
Okay.
Yeah. Go ahead, Jen.
Thanks. Just another question first on President Putin and sort of the message coming from Russia. He yesterday expressed hope for diplomacy, and after the U.S. announcement on troops today, the Russian deputy foreign minister called the move unjustified and destructive. So what is your response to sort of their rhetoric of, you know, calling for diplomacy here, given what their posture is on the border of Ukraine?
I would say be very open-eyed about Russian propaganda and what they're putting out there. We know what is happening on the border. Everybody can open their eyes and see. They have gathered more than 100,000 troops at the border. They have also built up troops in Belarus at another border. That has not changed. We have not seen de-escalatory actions. At the same time, we don't know that President Putin has made a decision to act. And that means that we are going to, of course, continue to leave the door open to diplomacy. We're going to continue to discuss and engage where we can find common ground with Russian leaders. That doesn't mean that we are going to bow to what their demands are on issues like NATO and the right of any sovereign country to be able to choose which alliances they pursue. We've been clear on that from the beginning. But, you know, diplomacy means you agree on some things, you disagree on others, you try to figure out where you have common ground, and that's the process that we're still undergoing.
On another subject, the House is working through the China bill right now,
Yeah.
And there were some amendments that were released last night. There's an effort by some House members to attach guardrails to CHIPS funding, which would mean they wouldn't be able to get U.S. taxpayer dollars while also investing in China. Does the administration have a view on that?
I'm not going to get into any specifics about the negotiations that are ongoing. Certainly, the president is eager to sign the competition bill into law. I would also note that Mr. McCarthy made clear he was going to whip against this bill. And let's just think about how ludicrous that is. He is a leader in the Republican House. This is a bill that would help address supply chain issues. It would help make us more competitive with China. It would provide more than $50 billion in funding to ensure there's chips manufacturing here in the United States, which would help, by the way, reduce and prevent inflation over time in an industry where 1/3 of inflationary pressure is coming from, which is the car industry. So there are important discussions happening right now, but the whipping against this legislation that warranted a great deal of bipartisan support in the Senate, is certainly a question that hopefully House Republicans will have to answer for.
And then just another China question on a little bit of a different subject, which is the COVID tests that are being sent out by the federal government. The Chinese company Andon Health owns iHealth, which is one of the providers. They signed a $1.3 billion contract with the Pentagon last month for these tests. Is the administration concerned about sort of both the sort of optics and messaging of sending something to Americans' homes that says made in China on it, at the same time that you're doing this thing that you consider to be a positive good for Americans, and just kind of the overall philosophy of giving federal contracts to China?
Well, I would say our objective and continues to be to increase U.S. manufacturing capacity of tests. We also needed to meet a need that we had in this country for more tests and a shortage of tests, and the understandable demand from people across this country to get tests and make them free and accessible, which required us purchasing some of those tests from China in order to meet that demand. But that doesn't change our commitment to increasing our U.S. manufacturing to ensure that we will be able to meet that demand with products made here in the United States over the course of time. Go ahead.
Thanks, Jen. Yesterday, the national debt passed $30 trillion for the first time. Does the administration see that as a problem, or do you share the view of some economists that debt doesn't matter?
Well, the president believes we need to have a sustainable and responsible fiscal policy, which is why he put forward ways to pay for his major proposals. He's committed to a sustainable and responsible policy in ensuring that our long-term investments are fully paid for, like Build Back Better. I'd also note that this stands in significant contrast from the previous administration and Republicans in Congress, which passed a $1.5 trillion tax cut for wealthy taxpayers in 2017 and didn't pay for it. As we look to the debt, which obviously the president wants to be lower, it's important to note that more than 95% of the national debt was incurred before he took office. The national debt increased by $7.8 trillion during former President Trump's presidency, which accounts for about 30% of its total. So we are working to be fiscally responsible, and that certainly is a priority to the president.
Okay, one more on Afghanistan. There's a new report up from the UN that says that more than 100 former members of the Afghan government and other Afghan allies of the U.S. have been killed since the Taliban returned to power. There are additional reports that thousands of Afghan allies of the U.S. are still in Afghanistan. They're hiding out. They can't get to the U.S. because of issues with a special immigrant visa. Does the administration consider it a priority to get these people out of Afghanistan? And if so, why are they still there 6 months after we withdrew?
We absolutely do, and we have also helped thousands of our Afghan partners leave Afghanistan since our full withdrawal at the end of August. As has been reported, there was a delay or there was a gap where there were not flights. Those have resumed, which is a good sign, which will hopefully enable us to continue to get more people out. Obviously, the president also met with the Qatari leader earlier this week. They have been an important partner here, as we don't have the diplomatic presence, as you well know, that we had prior. I would just note that from the beginning, we've been able to evacuate evacuate more than 120,000 people from Afghanistan. Some American citizens, many of them Afghan partners and allies, people who have fought alongside us during the 20-year war. And that is the largest evacuation since the Vietnam War. So I would say we are still committed to doing this. We are not naive about the challenges, nor are we naive about the conditions on the ground, which is why we are so focused on getting humanitarian assistance to the people in Afghanistan through trusted and reliable sources. But it is a good sign that the flights have resumed. Obviously, this was a topic of discussion with the Qataris earlier this week as well. Go ahead.
Thanks, Jen. Just on schools, New Orleans became the first major district in the country to have a vaccine mandate for all students going into effect yesterday. We know how you guys feel about the need to getting vaccinated, but will the White House press other districts to follow in New Orleans' steps?
We will always, we believe that it's up to school districts to make decisions about what steps they put in place, and we would certainly advise all of them to follow CDC guidance.
On the mandate, there are a number of exemptions that parents can apply for. It's pretty easy to get an exemption. Does the White House think that sort of defeats the purpose of the mandate, or is that okay? Or
We have exemptions that we implement in the federal government as well.
Staying on education, yesterday also, before the president paused the student loan debt repayments, or I guess extended the pause in late 2021. It was supposed to resume yesterday. Is the Department of Education pushing forward any other steps to make sure that when those payments relaunch in May, borrowers will be able to make them, or will the president extend that pause again? Or is he still considering executive action to forgive student loan debt again?
Sure. Well, I would note that no one has been required to pay a single dime of federal student loans since the president took office. As you noted, he extended that pause to May to give breathing room to borrowers who are still coping with the pandemic. He certainly also supports Congress for providing $10,000 in debt relief, a bill he would be happy to sign into law. I don't have any additional executive orders to predict at this point in time, but certainly in May, if this resumes, the Education Department will continue working to ensure a smooth transition to repayment. Go ahead.
Thanks, Jen. Last week, President Biden and President Zelensky discussed the macroeconomic package of assistance for Ukraine. What's the status of those negotiations? What's the scope and scale of that package? And what's the holdup, given that the economic damage is happening in real time from the Russian threat, and the EU has already announced its own economic package?
Yes, we have been discussing with the Ukrainians a package of economic assistance. That package and discussion has been underway, obviously with at the leader level, but also beyond. At this point in time, I think the discussion is with other counterparts from our government and theirs about next steps. I mean, this was not the first economic package that we are providing to the Ukrainians. We have provided a significant amount of assistance, not just security assistance, but humanitarian and other economic assistance over the course of time. So that would certainly build on that. But in terms of a next step, I can check and see if there's anything specific to update you on.
Just to follow up on the troop levels, why did the president authorize the deployment specifically to Poland and Romania? Are they considered the most vulnerable of the eastern flank countries compared to, say, Hungary or the Baltics? And is it because the negotiations with the other countries haven't worked out, or is it because these are considered the most vulnerable members?
Well, I think as my colleague John Kirby conveyed, we've left the door open to additional. I have nothing to predict on that front, but this was based on, or this announcement and deployment was based on consultations and conversations with these countries where we have sent these troops. I don't have any more details about behind-the-scenes conversation to lay out from here. Go ahead.
Thanks, Jen. Senator Graham and Congressman Clyburn have been calling for educational diversity on the court, suggesting the president should choose someone who attended a public university rather than an Ivy League school, for example. As the graduate of a public university,
Me too.
Does the president?
Who else here?
Does the president
Public
have
schools.
Any? I'm just saying about the president. Does he have any thoughts on that as a graduate of the public university? Will that factor into his consideration at all?
Sure. I certainly understand the question. I've seen their comments. I would say the president's, and we certainly appreciate Senator Graham's thoughts and, of course, those of Mr. Clyburn. What the president's focus is on is choosing from a wealth of deeply qualified candidates who bring to bear the strongest records, credentials, and abilities that anyone could have for this role. As you know, he has nominated judges who have not gone to Ivy League schools, so I think that speaks to his value for that. But in terms of the credentials, I don't have any more specifics to lay out for you today.
Related to that, though, also just wanted to ask about candidates who have already gone through a judicial confirmation process, either for the district court level or the appeals court level. Is that something the president's going to be taking into consideration, whether they've already made it through the Senate Judiciary Committee once before?
The president's focus is, again, choosing from a wealth of highly qualified candidates who bring to bear strong records, credentials, and abilities to serve on the court in a lifetime appointment. That is his focus, and also doing that through consultation with Republican and Democratic members of the Senate and experts, not on navigating the legislative process.
Shifting gears to one infrastructure question. A number of Florida Republicans have complained about the implementation of the new infrastructure law.
Who?
Well, certainly Governor DeSantis, Senator Rubio.
What are their complaints? I haven't even seen them.
Among the things they've complained about is they've suggested the state was shortchanged on bridge funding, that it should have gotten a bigger distribution. They've complained that the Everglades funding that was announced the other week should have been higher. Coming from Senators Rubio, Scott, and members of the House delegation who voted against the bill, does the White House have any response to lawmakers who opposed the bill in the first place, complaining that their share of the bill isn't higher?
It's pretty rich, isn't it? I would say first, I think the Everglades funding, I don't have it in front of me, but I believe it's in the billions, if I'm correct. You may have the exact number. Okay. There is also an enormous, I mentioned this a little bit yesterday, about 90% of the competitive funding that's available will go to localities, territories, others who can apply for it, and that's why we put out this big book just a few days ago, so people know the criteria where they can apply for that funding. I think Mitch Lander, when he was here, quoted, I think, a Nancy Pelosi quote, so I'm just going to quote it. I don't know, now I can't even remember it, but point is, even if you vote against it, you still want the money. We've seen that over the course of time. That speaks to how political a lot of these votes were, given this is funding that will help rebuild a lot of these communities, and the president will certainly be making clear who was with him and who wasn't with him. Go ahead.
Right. Last week, the Vice President appealed to governors to help with the defense of voting rights. Does the administration feel that the effort for national voting rights legislation is dead? And if so, is it now going to focus its efforts at state level?
We have to do both. So federal legislation is important for a number of reasons, including that it creates a baseline of requirements or requirement standards in states so people can know who are fearful about how they can vote, when they can vote. If you're a mom of 3 kids, you should have a lot of options for dropping off your ballot or going to vote early, and ensuring those requirements are standard across states. It also ensures that for states that have histories of voter suppression, that they would have to seek approval from the Department of Justice to make changes. That's a good thing. So we're still fighting for those. The president has said he will fight for those until his last breath. At the same time, what I think the vice president was talking about, and she will be playing a vital role in, is working with states and localities on how we can fight against oppressive voter suppression, voter laws that are popping up in states, how we can empower and engage populations to ensure they know what their rights are. So we're going to do both, and it's important to do both.
And Mitch McConnell said today, given current COVID facts and science, it is time for the state of emergency to wind down. Does the president agree with that? And is that still possible when there's that hardcore of anti-vaccination people?
Well, I didn't see the full context of Mr. McConnell's comments. I will say that the president's view is that we're not going to live like this forever. We don't want to live like this forever. And our objective and our goal is on ending this pandemic as we know it today. So we don't have it it's not something that's disrupting our daily lives. We'll do more and more to protect people and accelerate the path out of this pandemic. There is a lot of progress that's been made. 210 million people are fully vaccinated. That's nearly 75% of adults. We had less than 1% vaccinated when the president took office. About 98% of schools are open. And we understand the sentiment that I think he's expressing, even if I haven't seen the full context. We're, of course, looking at when the time comes, what it will mean to end the pandemic as we know it today. But right now, what our focus is on is ensuring we're implementing the tools that we know that work as we're still continuing to fight the virus. Go ahead.
Thank you, Jen. The Pentagon says that Poland and Romania requested U.S. troops, U.S. deployment. Have you received similar requests from other eastern flank countries, Baltic states? And what will trigger additional troops deployment to the eastern flank? And I'm going to have one more.
Sure. So I'm just not going to detail those private diplomatic conversations. I would point you to the Pentagon if they want to share any more detail. I'd be surprised if they did. But certainly those conversations are continuing. They're not done. And I think my colleague John Kirby made that clear during his briefing today.
And one more. Has President Biden consulted this decision with the leaders of the Republican Party? And how does he feel about their support? Because there were some voices on the American right questioning President Biden's policy towards Russia-Ukraine crisis.
Well, I would say that we have had an enormous amount of we've done an enormous amount of briefing and engagement with Democratic and Republican leaders about the decision-making and how we're approaching the escalatory nature of Russia's behavior on the border. Senator McConnell made some comments in that regard last week, and this is an issue, in our view, that should not be partisan. What we're doing here is we're standing up for what have long been bipartisan American values, which is standing up for the sovereignty of a country, ensuring that they have the right and the ability to choose their own alliances, supporting them with a range of economic, humanitarian, and security assistance, and doing that in a way that's coordinated with our partners and allies. There are some from the Republican Party who have not voiced support for that. And again, as I said a little bit earlier in the briefing, if you are digesting Russian misinformation and parroting Russian propaganda, you may be on the wrong side of this issue. Go ahead.
Hi. Two questions.
Yeah.
The first, does the president know who Leonard Peltier is?
Sure he does, but I have not discussed it with him.
Just call me and let me know if he knows. Is he aware of the push by Democratic senators?
Nice and cryptic.
NATO state legislators and even Pope Francis at one point to send Peltier home from prison?
I have not discussed this with him specifically. I'm happy to see if there's any more follow-up.
And then my second question is about the Supreme Court. Some Republican senators like Ted Cruz are criticizing Biden for saying he'll pick a black woman for the Supreme Court. He said it's quote unquote offensive because somehow the black woman he chooses wouldn't be the most qualified for the job. But Republicans like Cruz also celebrated when Trump picked Amy Coney Barrett for the Supreme Court, with Cruz telling Barrett during her confirmation hearing, quote, "Your children have been wonderfully well behaved. I think you're an amazing role model for little girls. What advice would you give little girls?" So my question for you is, why do you think Republicans like Ted Cruz are acting so angry about Biden picking a black woman for the Supreme Court when they were very happy when Trump picked Amy Coney Barrett for the court?
I read that exact quote yesterday. I'm glad lots of people are following it. I think that's really a question for Senator Cruz. But it is important to note, as you just did in your question, that there was never an objection by Senator Cruz to Donald Trump promising he'd nominate a woman in 2020. You noted what he said to the woman he nominated in the hearing and how he applauded her in the hearing. The notion, the president's view, is the notion that there has not been a black woman ever on the Supreme Court in 230 years is a problem with the process, not a lack of qualified, credentialed people to consider and nominate. That's his view, but I think that's a question best for Senator Cruz.
Why do you think, what's the difference between Trump picking Amy Coney Barrett and saying he'd pick a woman in advance and Biden picking a black woman?
That's exactly why I called out this issue yesterday, but I am blissfully not a spokesperson for Senator Cruz, so he can best answer that question.
Are they going to scissor now?
All right, thanks everyone. Oh, Yes.
Senator Schumer is currently coming here today to meet with the president about the Supreme Court pick and process. Can you confirm that? Do you have any other information on what their conversation?
I believe it was under discussion to figure out how they could connect, whether it was on the phone or in person. Let me see if I can get more details on it, but it's part of the consultation process that you've seen take place over the past couple of days. Thank you, everyone.
Put your compliance cloth on your lizard face there, Jen Psaki. All right, so what we're going to do is we're going to do the Pledge of Allegiance here in a second. We're going to check on the truckers in Ottawa, and then at 1:30 there's supposed to be something going on with Old Man Walter, and then we will run that to like 2:40-ish, and I have some stuff I have to go do, so I'm going to end up missing the C-19 briefing, and I know you guys love that. You guys love watching Fauci and stuff. But yeah, we will cover what's going on with Old Man Walter. We'll go back to the truckers and see what's going on with that till 2:45, and then I got to go run some errands and stuff, and then when I get back to the house, we'll go live again with whatever's going on. Most likely it'll just be the trucker stuff, but there could be other things going on. That's what I have planned for as of right now. So let's get ready for the Pledge of Allegiance. While I'm getting ready, please make sure you hit that subscribe or follow button on whichever platform you're currently watching right now in order to be connected to our live. We try to go live every single day covering everything. Also hit that like button. Let's run them likes up. The more likes that we get in a short period of time, the more people the algorithm will bring into the chat to come hang out with us and see what's going on. So you got to hit that like button. Make sure our chats stay full. Let's see. Thank you so much, Larry, for joining the membership program, and welcome to the family. You're officially a hooligan. And thank you so much, Ziggurat, for the $2. I really appreciate your donation and all the support. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Bugs, for continuing the membership program. You're super awesome, and you're officially a hooligan. All right, let's get the pledge in. All right, hooligans, join me for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, give me a second to pull up a couple feeds for what's going on with the truckers.
Did you know you can receive free
Thank you, Jeff. Incredible. Okay, guys, I'm gonna walk down here. We'll get some copyright because of the Bob Marley. Freedom Convoy 2022, Ottawa, Ontario, Canada. Walking down the convoy here. Lots of lovely people. Rolling some coal. They're here to stay. Until the mandates are lifted, these guys and girls aren't going anywhere.
Sunshine Kills. Yeah, I play golf every once in a while. I haven't played in a little bit, but it's not since the plague has happened I haven't played, but I've played quite a bit. I'm not very good at it. I don't know why. Just not very good at it. And it's not because I drink like 12 beers while I'm there.
But at the start of the protest, there was a whole bunch of trucks here. This was just trucks all through here. That fax over here. People just keep coming in waves. It's just wave after wave. Everyone's happy.
What's up, Paul? Thanks for being here.
Mask on.
Amy, Facebook just banned U.S. convoys. Like the page they had started.
Down here toward the Rideau, Sussex, Colonel By. It's the Chateau Laurier Hotel. That's the War Memorial. We're walking away from Parliament. And we'll go down here. There's more action down here. Okay. Freedom Convoy 2022. Everyone from around the world who's joined this live stream, thank you so much for joining. Everyone who's donated through Super Chat, you guys are just, I'm lost for words. You guys are incredible.
I think here in a second we're going to switch over to Viva Free. He's interviewing somebody, but it's kind of like mid-interview, so I don't know if we're going to switch right this second, but I think that's where we're going to go next. Well, Old Man Walter is actually supposed to hit the stage in 6 minutes. I'm going to sit here and monitor it. If he jumps up on time, which he's never on time, we'll flip over to that.
Check them out. Check out my other stuff on my channel. I usually do like motor graders and snow removal equipment and stuff. If you're into that kind of stuff.
Trigger Crazy, yes, I have checked out Autowalks. I don't know if they're live right now. I'll have to check, but they're awesome. They're definitely on the roster and stuff of a go-to to check out what's going on with the convoy. What's up, Steven? I'm doing good. How are you doing? What's up, Zombie Hunter? What's up, Lion? Thanks for being here.
Not too hard to get around these. They need to.
All right, Amy, that's fine. No worries. I'm sure now that we had said it out loud, there's probably hooligans investigating what's going on with the U.S. convoy. So we'll get some more information here in a little bit.
Dalhousie's further down.
What's up, me, Jay? Thanks for being here.
Fringe. Well, there's a lot of hope here, folks. They're not going anywhere. Don't worry about that. They're not going away until the mandates are lifted.
Was that an Antifa flag? Yeah, Bugs. The problem is what can we do? Like, what can we do about it? You know, anything that's going on, the mandates and all the nonsense going on in D.C., you know, what can we do about it? That's the problem is we have a lot of, you know, we the people are powerful. It's where do we direct that energy to get the best results, you know, peacefully and constructively. And that's the issue is we don't have enough legal avenues to recall a president or to recall these elected officials. And, you know, some of these people we don't even elect. We don't have term limits on Congress. Like, we need to fix things legally. I'm just not quite sure how we're going to be able to do it or get people on board with it.
No names. We're just ripped away from their families.
What's up, Adam? Thanks for being here.
This is what
Edward, do I think that Old Man Walter is going to announce a new war with Russia this week? I have no idea. I don't know what to expect. Trigger Crazy, you got back to Alberta and violence broke out at the border? With who? Like, who was being violent? What's up, Sneaky Peeky? Thanks for being here. Sultry stop sign. I really appreciate you. We will definitely be going more places this summer for flag walks and stuff. I know that we went to Ludington a lot. I actually did one in Hart that I didn't cover. But I've been kind of like sticking to this area. But when it's warm out and the snow melts and stuff, I want to go more places here in Michigan and even outside of Michigan. I've had a lot of people write me and say they want to join the flag marches and stuff. So we're going to put a lot more focus on that once the snow melts. I just kind of started doing it late in the year last year. But no, definitely. We will definitely come down to southern Michigan and meet up with you guys and do some marching. Heck yeah.
So I think we're going to wrap up this live stream, guys.
Hey, I appreciate you, 0 views. Thank you for being here. Give me a second. Let's see what Viva's got going on.
Thank you.
Oh, did you want it?
By suspending my professorship, they also said that it is unsafe for residents and medical students to interact with me. So that made it impossible for me to work in an academic setting. However, because of the fact that by the grace of God, my performance reviews were so good and my practice of surgery, no problem with that at all. I have a full surgery license.
I got to ask the discreet question: have they put you in financial harm
by having done what they did? And how can people support you if they want to? David, that's a very kind question, a very good question. Yes, there is financial harm. I did lose my contract, but the story now is actually much bigger than me. When I hear the honking horns, I'm reminded of Les Miserables. Do you hear the song that's with la da dee da 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 da? Do you know the words, David?
No, but I'm going to say it's better that it's good that you're a doctor and not a singer, sir. Sorry, I couldn't resist.
Dang, just burn him right there on the camera.
So Les Miserables has that thing where the crowds are storming the castle of tyranny, so to speak.
Sugar crazy. Cops versus farmers. Farmers broke through the barricade. The entire Montana-Alberta border is blocked. SWAT and military is there. I actually was just talking to Who through last night, and he was telling me about that stuff. If you can get any footage of that, that would be really awesome, Sugar Crazy, because as far as I know, there is no footage of that area. It's just articles about it.
It's a miraculous time. The heart of the tyranny has been breached.
What's up, Michael? Yeah, I'm in Michigan. I am north of Muskegon, west of Grand Rapids.
Calling me because I had lost total track of time. What are you doing now going forward? Sorry, back it up. I got one question. How do you feel in your heart of hearts when your license, when your profession is being attacked, not by boycotts, Twitterverse, but by the actual board of your profession, like by the actual members, people in your field? How do you deal with that type of betrayal of your profession from professionals?
That's an excellent question, because yes, this tyranny has morphed into something that affects every one of our lives and every part of every life.
Salty Stripper vids, that link you sent me, they're not a source. I just checked on it. They're a restreamer. They were just like on Facebook and stuff.
Told to socially distance. Can you imagine that, David? They can't talk to each other. They can't hug each other. They can't do the normal things that teenagers do. And so this has affected every bit of society. But this is a medical tyranny too, because the whole thing is built around a medical lie.
Enterprise. If they had any respect for that man in the last stream, they would have told him his crack was showing. They were just letting him air it out. No big deal.
Difference from mortality from COVID for kids than for the elderly. So focused protection of the elderly was what is called for. Now, if we stray from the official narrative, in other words, if we pursue the truth, the licensing bodies, you're absolutely right. They've come down heavily on those doctors. In Ontario, for example, the licensing bodies.
Sultry stop sign, you're hilarious. I don't know if I've ever said this on the live, but I actually lived in South Bend for like 2-3 years. I went to Clay Middle School. It's kind of rough in South Bend.
On the science, I want to remind the licensing bodies that is how science progresses, by differing opinions, by discussion, dissent, debate, and just look at the last several months. Many of the people who had contrary views and who you have persecuted actually have been borne out to be right. The vaccine is a leaky vaccine. It is not safe. It is not effective. The crime minister, I won't call him prime minister, the crime minister has shown that the vaccine is ineffective. In other words, he's triple jabbed, and he's got COVID, and he's telling people that this is the solution for the pandemic.
Well, I'm not playing devil's advocate. I'm just going to give the steelman argument. They're going to say it is effective because it reduces the severity of symptoms. That's what the argument is now morphed into. And I guess, I don't know how you measure that, but that will be the response. And then what's going to be the retort to that? It reduces the severity of symptoms. Operate on that. Take that for granted or deny it. But what's the response?
Well, first of all, that is not the goal of any vaccine. A vaccine is supposed to prevent illness. It wasn't the goal of the Pfizer trials also. It is something that they picked up as an excuse to say, yes, the vaccine does prevent severe illness. Thanks
for sending me the link, Trigger Crazy.
Before I I'll give you an example.
I just posted it in the general chat.
Conclusion. We need to see the raw data. I'll give you an example. In Alberta, they released this, and that was in my presentation with Peter McCullough. In Alberta, they released this statistic that in fact,
What's up, USA Forever?
related problems with COVID was much more after the first 2 weeks after I'm just saying it slowly so that the science is obvious. The vaccine related effects after the first two weeks after the first dose was peaking. So in other words, we know from the basic science that if you get the first dose of the mRNA vaccine, you're more likely to get COVID. You're more likely to get COVID. But that kind of person in provincial data would be called unvaccinated. So if you look at the graphs in the Alberta data, which I presented, you will see.
Oh yeah, Hoothru, I didn't even think about that. I'm like doing all this stuff. We might have to go to someone else. I don't know if what this guy's talking about is going to cause me problems on YouTube or not. Give me a second.
And then you will see that those out there that love the horn sounds, we're coming up to them. The truth is coming out every day, and they don't like it.
Hey, True Crazy, no worries. I would never send any hooligans into danger. I just thought if you were still in the area to try and capture some footage, but the link you sent me is good. I'm just trying to get some eyes on what's going on over there until, you know, some live streamers get in that area, if they do. Yeah, Adriana, that's the sucky thing. I actually get a lot of hate for having to bend around these community guidelines on YouTube, but what am I supposed to do? Have somebody say something and then I get banned and that's that. Like, gotta do what you gotta do to keep moving forward. Plus, a lot of that information isn't new. Stuff about the jab, stuff about politics. We're so in the face of all of this. We know what most of these people are saying. It's just nice that other people know it too. I think that's where most of the value is all of us already know this stuff, but to see random people on the street speaking same things, correlating logic, that's how you know people are waking up. WH, I might have to Google that. I'm not sure who that is. What's up, Indigo? Channel Q, we were talking about the Alberta, Montana border. There's no eyes on that border. Not from what I've seen so far, other than that clip that Trigger Crazy just sent me that I posted in the Discord. If you guys aren't a part of the Discord, you should definitely join the Discord. There's tons of hooligans to hang out with. There's tons of news constantly coming in, especially Hoothru when he's not modding. He is full-time updating the news board, but it is also the best way to stay notified for when and where we go live. So definitely join the Discord.
you don't mind, if we could ask the truckers to just lay off the horns for a few minutes, we have a couple people that want to say some things, that'd be awesome. So any of you who don't know me, my name is Chris Scott. I own a cafe in Mirror, Alberta, a little town of 500 people. And ever since last January, I've been butting heads with the government and with Alberta Health Services over my restaurant. Because in January, I said enough is enough, and I opened my restaurant against the mandates. And when I did so, I got a lot of heat from the government and from health services, as you can imagine. And that's what's brought me here today. But before I continue, there's a couple housekeeping things I want to go over. And the first one is, has anybody noticed there's a lot of men and women walking around with us the last few days that were wearing bright yellowish green vests? You notice that? If you walk by these men and women, take the time to say thank you. They're not here because they want to disrupt what we're doing. They're here for us and to keep us safe. And they have to do that. So I would encourage you to say thank you. Another thing I want to get out there, so yeah.
Old man Walter's he's still not on stage. He was supposed to be on 11 minutes ago.
A lot of conspiracy stuff and misinformation going around out there. I've had so many people come up to me and say, oh man, you see that guy on the roof? There's snipers up there. We're at Parliament. Parliament is very well protected, and it always has been. This isn't anything different than any other time in history. That's the way it is here. So, why don't we take a moment just to wave and say thank you to the men and women who are upstairs keeping us safe. Thank you. Okay, so if anybody doesn't know, I've been battling with the government.
Hey, I appreciate you, Amy.
For over a year now. And the fight is slow. It's a fight that lands you in court. It costs thousands, hundreds of thousands of dollars. But I've gotten support from an organization called Rebel Media. Does anyone know who that is?
That's who through said to go check out for more information on what's going on with the Montana-Alberta border.
My message
Rebel Media, or Rebel News on Twitter.
Couple days. Now that we're here, now that the streets of Ottawa are filled with trucks and people, what do we do? Where do we go? What's the plan? We're not going anywhere. That is true, we're not going anywhere. Which brings up one more housekeeping thing. So there's a fellow in the crowd today who has exercised a tremendous amount of courage, and he's standing up for what he believes in, and he came down here to speak a view that's opposing to ours. Now, when people do that, it's important to remember that as Canadians, we don't have to agree with their view, but we need to be accepting to it. So why don't we give that guy a round of applause and say thank you for taking the courage to come down here and speak.
These speeches are choreographed pretty well. What's up, Cunning Stunt? Thanks for being here. Your name is awesome.
And that brings me to what I wanted to speak about. What do we do and where do we go from here? There's a sign here that says we will not be held hostage in our own city. And I agree with that 100%. I refuse to be held hostage in my own country by a government or any authority that is going to strip away, infringe, or remove my rights, freedoms, or privileges for any reason if they can't justify it.
Yeah, sure crazy. That'd be cool. Send me a link.
In my own province or in my own country. And that's why I'm here. That's why all of these truckers are here. And I want to remind you, a lot of the truckers that are here, that are participating in this demonstration, they're double or triple jabbed. They are not here for themselves. They're here because they look around and they see their friends and neighbors and their family members being discriminated against, being bullied. The Prime Minister, the leader of our country, is using words that encourage bullying and harassment and discrimination towards a group of Canadians. And it doesn't matter if that group is a minority or not. Since when is it acceptable in Canada to discriminate against anybody? That is never acceptable in my Canada or in your Canada. So where...
Chris, they're doing better than BLM? I think so. I think so.
I hear a lot of kick 'em.
What's up, Face?
In politics, in government, kick him out, that's a long-term plan. Because I'll tell you right now, there is no piece of paper, no petition, no magic anything that you're going to hand the government or anybody in government, and it's going to change a damn thing with the government. And the reason for that is because our government is designed, the structure is designed, that the government stays in place even when things like this go on. I'll tell you what does make a difference though. When hundreds of thousands of people across Canada take it to the streets and there's a visual and an audible signal that Canadians have had enough. Our goal now that everybody has come together in unity towards a common goal, is to use that to encourage other Canadians to stand up from sea to shining sea. Because when we stand up as people, as citizens of Canada, we can make a difference. You don't need
Mile High. No, I haven't done a flag march in a couple months. I'm actually thinking about maybe doing one if the weather gets warm enough here in Michigan.
Every person in this crowd, you are your own king and queen, and you're showing that right now just by being here. And the more we can encourage people across Canada to do the same thing and take up this fight and stand up for their rights, the better chance we have of forcing the government to change their path. That's what this is about. It's about showing people that they're not alone. There's millions of Canadians over the last 2 years who have been told that they're a minority or fringe or a conspiracy theorist because they didn't believe in the restrictions. And those people are starting to be proven right. Johns Hopkins University just released a study that showed that the restrictions did more harm than good. It is crumbling, and it's up to us to keep this momentum going. And while we're doing that, we have to recognize that the impacts we make when we do it there are impacts, and some people don't agree. So we need to be conscious of that. We need to be conscious of the impacts we're making in this community. One thing that we've done through an organization that I created last year, it's called wsfullsteamahead.org, is we started something called Operation Snowman, because Ottawa is about to get a big dump of snow. Who here has been in Ottawa when it snowed? I never have, but I've seen it on the news, and it's wild. So what we've done is we put out a call for people to bring us truckers. Sorry, I'm not a trucker, I'm a restaurateur. I just drove a truck here. To bring us shovels so that we can take care of the sidewalks, because it's very unlikely that the city of Ottawa can do it. We want to make positive impacts in this community. We don't want to leave anybody behind. And we want to show Ottawa and show Canada that this is about compassion. It's not about annoying them or making, it's not about staying here until the Prime Minister just gives in to demands. It's about unifying a country to stand up as kings and queens over their own lives and say, we are Canada and we do not want this. Already, does anybody know what happened this morning? Aaron O'Toole has been ousted as the leader of the CPC.
Oh, somebody just said that in the chat.
So I can tell you right now, from 6 months ago to what just happened this morning within the CPC, that is significant, very significant, because the tide is turning. Those men and women in there who you elected to represent you, to speak your voice in the House, the tide is turning. The wind is shifting. And they're starting to realize that Canadians don't want to live under this anymore. And they're speaking out. They need to be encouraged. And the way...
Yeah, I appreciate you, Indigo. Just rest and make sure you get better. Definitely drink a lot of water. It's important. You don't want to be fainting like I did. Black out in the hallway or in the bathroom. It's no good.
They're going to keep that. And I can tell you that is a fact, because I have a box of letters at home that people have written me saying the same thing. So take the time to encourage those that are standing out. Tell them that you don't want them to stop fighting. That's why I kept going, is because people like you encouraged me. And you haven't stopped throughout this whole thing. There are those out there who are against everything I stand for. And they speak out and they call me all sorts of things, but it doesn't matter. Because I know that I'm on the right side of history. You can feel it in the air. When you walk down this street at night and you see people smiling and dancing and shaking hands and hugging, that's what Canada is.
Everyone's saying this bearded guy in the lower right corner there's a Fed boy.
Canadians are not a mass
calling him out.
Society who shame each other and ridicule each other. Canada is a loving, accepting country, which is why people from all over the world give up everything they have to come here. So Aaron O'Toole is out. Aaron O'Toole's his response to this whole thing was, well, let's just put vaccination clinics at truck stops. He may as well have said, let them eat cake. Completely out of touch with what this movement is about. And it is not about a vaccine mandate for truckers anymore. It is not about a mask. It's not about any of that. It's about Canadians unifying and saying we are going to stand under our charter rights and freedoms as free men and women, and you sure as hell better listen to us.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
All right, Old Man Walter is getting on stage, so we're going to switch over there and see what they got going on.
We open dialogue with those who don't agree with us. I hope I get the opportunity to speak with that man today. I want to speak to people that disagree with me, and I want to share why I'm doing this. Because the people that disagree with us, we have common ground. We all want the same things: safety, health, prosperity, right? Is that right? Yeah! And what we're seeing right now is we can have those things. We don't need to be subject to rules that don't. Not just patients. Cancer changes everyone it touches. And in some ways, it touches us all. For Joe and me,
just like Old Man Walter.
Stolen our joy. It left us broken in our grief. But through that pain, we found purpose. Strengthening our fortitude for this fight to end cancer as we know it.
Big Stinky, I'll make that the poll question when we get back to the convoy.
Were diagnosed with breast cancer in 1 year. And one of my dear friends, Winnie, lost her battle. Winnie inspired me to take up the cause of prevention and education. And since then, I've seen the darkness of this disease. Financial devastation, confusion over care, and far too many families mourning loved ones. Yet, I've also seen hope. In just this last year, I met a woman whose life was saved by determined nurses who just wouldn't let her skip her screening. I met a doctor who was inspired to become a cancer researcher because she survived her own diagnosis as a child. I've seen people come together from rival companies or opposite political parties, sharing knowledge and finding common cause, united by the chance to save lives. A cancer diagnosis today may still leave us feeling hopeless, but we are not hopeless and we are not helpless. We are living in a golden age of research and discovery. We can end this terror, and all of us have a role to play. Because this isn't just about hoping that one person will decipher the answers alone. It's about listening to patients and survivors and their families and easing the burden they face. It's about the individual choices we can make to stop this disease before it's too late, to get screenings, to be vigilant with our health. It's about federal and state governments, the business community, and nonprofit organizations all helping to make those screenings more available and accessible. It's about bringing the brightest minds and the fiercest hearts to the table to learn and to collaborate and to discover together. Yes, cancer has the power to rewrite our lives, but we have the power too, more than we even know. We can stop it in its tracks. We can comfort and discover and dream our way past its paralysis. We can come together and rewrite the story that cancer tells. Now, as your First Lady, I'm deeply proud to be a partner in the commitments we're making to the Cancer Moonshot today. We're ensuring that all of our government is ready to get to work. We're going to break down the walls that hold research back. We're going to bring the best of our nation together. Patients, survivors, caregivers, researchers, doctors, and advocates, all of you, so that we can get this done. And I want you to know that I'll be there working right beside you. So I'm so honored to welcome all of you here to the White House today.
Who are you to welcome us to anything? Why are you even addressing us, lady?
We will give Americans a reason to hope. We will use this power of this White House to make your life better. And we will build a future where the word cancer forever loses its power. Thank you. Now, it's my pleasure to welcome our next speaker. Vice President Harris knows the heartache of cancer, but she also knows how much hope can be found in our scientific community. She knows it because she saw it firsthand in her brilliant mother, who dedicated her life to researching breast cancer. Kamala, you honor your mom's memory every single day, but I believe she's especially proud of you today. Please welcome the Vice President of the United States, Kamala Harris.
Dr. Jill Biden.
Stop clapping in the mic, you tard.
First Lady Dr. Jill Biden, President Joe Biden. Thank you both for your incredible and long-standing leadership on an issue of national importance, yes, and of personal significance to so many of us, including me. So as Dr. Biden said, my whole life I stood witness as my mother, a scientist, worked to end breast cancer. So my mother taught at public universities. She worked at a national laboratory. She published groundbreaking research. She was a peer reviewer at the National Institutes of Health, NIH, and collaborated with scientists around the world, including in France, Italy, and Canada. My mother's discoveries helped save women's lives. And I am so proud that she brought our nation and our world closer to the goal of ending breast cancer as we know it. And today we are closer than we have ever been. Since the turn of the century, we have made significant breakthroughs. We have learned so much about therapeutics and diagnostics, about public health and patient care. More people are surviving cancer. More people are enduring cancer after being diagnosed than ever before.
And the death rate for cancer has fallen by about 25% over the past 20 years. In a moment, our president will lay out the new goals, ambitious goals, achievable goals for our nation to end cancer as we know it. These goals are not abstract, and they will transform lives.
Let me be clear.
Lives.
Is that her probably?
Lives. So I said at the outset that this is an issue of personal significance to so many and for me. You see, after a lifetime working to end cancer, cancer ended my mother's life. I will never forget the day that she sat my sister and me down and told us she had been diagnosed with colon cancer. It was one of the worst days of my life. And an experience that sadly, millions and millions of people in our country have had. My mother was a fighter, all 5 feet of her. You would have thought she was 7 feet, but she was only 5. And as I cared for her during those many months, I watched her courageous fight. But after countless rounds of chemo, her body gave out. She was transferred from the hospital to hospice. And in fact, one of the last questions she asked the hospice nurse was, "Are my daughters going to be okay?" I miss my mother every day, and I carry her memory with me wherever I go. When President Biden launched his cancer moonshot 5 years ago, I of course thought of my mother. We may not have ended cancer as we know it, not then, but there is still so much work to do, and we are so much closer. The President's Cancer Moonshot demonstrates who he, our president, is. Because as you all know, out of his personal pain, he launched an initiative, this initiative, that will help countless lives.
What's up, Cheeky Chops?
This initiative also demonstrates who we are as a nation. In America, we not only dream, we do. We not only see what can be, we see where we can go in a way that when we reach for the moon, we plant our flag on it. So it is now my honor to introduce another leader who for many years has worked tirelessly in the lab and the clinic in that spirit. From Emory University School of Medicine, Dr. Ajay Andam. Thank you.
Man, I don't go to Subway that often. All right, everyone, please hit that like button and share this out. We're going to be running for at least the next 40 minutes or so, and after this is over, we'll go back to the truckers and stuff, but let's get this chat filled up.
All these new pandemic rituals, the taking off the mask at the podium, I'm getting used to it. Thank you, Vice President Harris. It is an honor to be here with you and to follow the path paved by your mother and all the brilliant researchers that came before and whose shoulders we stand upon. To the First Lady, thank you for your empathy and for truly understanding the pain and the promise that is this fight. I am thrilled to be able to be here to introduce someone that many of us consider to be the country's patient advocate in chief, President Joe Biden. From my vantage point as a neurosurgeon scientist, constantly thinking of ways to treat cancer patients, to fight cancer, and seeing countless patients every year, and as a board member of the National Brain Tumor Society, I can confidently say that this is the most exciting moment in the history of our field. As a physician today, when seeing patients with aggressive cancers like metastatic melanoma or lung cancer, I know that many more of them will see durable remissions after treatments with therapies that harness the body's immune system to fight their cancer. As a researcher, I know that NIH has created grants targeting brilliant young investigators, yes, that's me, that encourage us to take risks and chart new directions for our work. As an advocate, knowing that there is a president who is throwing the full weight of the presidency behind this effort means that even between big announcements like this one, all levers of government are being pulled to create a brighter future for cancer patients. This is also an exciting moment for me personally because I'm here. As a son of Ghanaian immigrants who came to the United States with nothing, there was a time when I could not participate in the scientific discussion in the United States. We have a ways to go before we're harnessing all of the diverse talents of our country. People of every race, ability, gender, and orientation. But the progress that we have made means that we're constantly bringing new ideas to this challenge. I stand here as a husband to Kelly, a father to Joseph, who's 9, and Emily, 6, to tell you that this is a moment to believe in a healthier future for all families, to believe that we can end cancer as we know it, to believe in science, and to believe in America. Standing firm in that belief, it is my honor to introduce the person charting the course ahead with vision, purpose, and so much hope. The 46th President of the United States, our Advocate-in-Chief, Joe Biden.
Thank you. Stupid son of a bitch. Thank you. I'm Joe Biden, Jill Biden's husband.
For real? I didn't know.
I want to thank you, Doctor, for that introduction. But I want to thank you more for all the effort you put in to change, save, alter people's lives. Your dedication to it. And as I used to say in the Senate, I think it's still said in the Senate, if you excuse the point of personal privilege, I'd like to see that doctor on the end there. That's the man who spent 18 months trying to save our son's life. Doctor, I love you. Whole family.
What's up, Kev Chat? Pampers and Thief. Yep. He looks like he's gaining weight.
Folks, the doctor's optimism and fearlessness embodies what our Cancer Moonshot is all about. And of course, I want to thank Jill and Kamala and Doug. They just shared how personal it is for them and our families. And like so many of you, every one of you have a story. Every one of you have a story. And our message today is this: we can do this. I promise you, we can do this. For all those we lost, for all those we miss, we can end cancer as we know it.
What's up, Chris Cola?
When I was vice president. It's one of the reasons why, quite frankly, I ran for president. But let there be no doubt, now that I am president, this is a presidential White House priority, period. You know, the bipartisan members of Congress, and I don't want to start because I'll leave somebody out. But you know, Congress is here.
You ain't shit, old man Walter.
One of the truly bipartisan issues in the United States Congress. I know their votes, but that includes Senator Patrick Leahy, Michael Bennet, Amy Klobuchar, Chris Van Hollen, Sanford Bishop, Representative Joyce Beatty, Barbara Lee, Jim McGovern, Donald Payne, Debbie Wasserman Schultz, Bonnie Watson Coleman, Tom Cole,
Brian Higgins. I said I wasn't going to do this. Terry Sewell. And it can be truly an American moment. I'm sure I've left somebody out, for which I apologize. But this can really be an American moment that proves to ourselves and, quite frankly, to the world that we can do really big things. You know, we made enormous progress in the past 50 years. Since Congress passed and President Nixon signed into law the National Cancer Act and declared war on cancer, we learned cancer is not a single disease. You used to think at that time it was a single disease. There are over 200, as you all know, 200 different types of cancer caused by different genetic mutations in our cells. We discover new medicines, therapies, early detection, prevention, measures that extend lives and save lives. In the first 25 years since the National Cancer Act, the death rate from cancer was largely unchanged. Then things began to change. The progress over the last 25 years, the death rate has fallen by more than 25%. But here's the deal. Despite the progress of lives extended and lives saved, cancer is still the #2 cause of death in America, second only to heart disease. In the last 2 years of COVID-19 pandemic, it's taken more than the pandemic.
What's up, Moist Kitten?
American lives. But that same period of time, cancer has claimed 1.2 million American lives, year in and year out. Too many
So you start yelling at us.
Diagnosed with cancer, instead of hope, there's also bewilderment. Remember, Doc, you telling the family that we had to be able to ask questions and you were available because it's a hard road to understand and to traverse. The feeling of being on your own, a static adrift in a sea of patients, frustrated that hospitals and doctors can't easily share your medical records or help find answers when there's minutes count. Having to advocate for even the most basic care and attention for your loved one. A flood of information, completely different language, in many cases with no one to help you decipher it. Being within reach of a therapy that's too expensive, or your insurance won't cover it. Despite all the progress, there's still a sense of powerlessness, guilt that maybe you're not doing enough because you don't know enough, and fear. So when President Obama asked me to launch our Cancer Moonshot in our administration, our goal was to bring a new sense of urgency to make the system of prevention, research, and patient care to take advantage of the 21st century science and technology. We began the process. Many of you in this room are part of that. We harnessed the resources of the federal government to change the culture, increase cooperation among scientists, and break down some of the silos. I note parenthetically, I remember I wanted to transfer a particular scan from a hospital in Pennsylvania to a hospital in D.C. And I was told I couldn't do it. Wasn't able to do it. Could transfer just about anything else in the world, but it couldn't do it. Because the hospitals didn't want the other hospitals to have access to their, because the patients could change their mind for all the records. That included everything from making federally funded cancer research more accessible to the public instead of hiding behind a paywall. We launched trials.cancer.gov so everyone can look up cancer clinical trials across the country and around the world. I travel the country, bringing together leaders of healthcare, technology, education, business, and technology. I visited most of the major cancer centers literally in the world, met with heads of state in those countries, and decided how we could work together to try to make progress. I remember a particularly good meeting in Australia One of the final pieces of legislation that President Obama signed into law was the bipartisan 21st Century Cures Act, with the help of members of Congress, particularly, I don't know, is Fred Upton here? Fred, are you here? Well, Fred Upton was part of it, and Diane DeGette in the House. It streamlined the Food and Drug Administration, FDA, so that new cancer treatments
and washing supplies
can be evaluated faster. It provided 7 years of new funding, including research on cancer disparities, trial networks to discover new drugs, and new efforts for childhood cancer. President of the Senate, as President of the Senate, I presided over the overwhelming vote after the election had already taken place, the presidential election, when everything is supposed to come to a screeching halt, a bipartisan vote to fund over $6 billion. And I watched my friend, and he is my friend, we disagree a lot, Mitch McConnell, stand there and ask unanimous consent to name the cancer provisions after our son, Bo. Cancer Moonshot brought the country and the world closer together on this issue. And when we left office, Jill and I knew we had to keep it going. So we took in a lot of you. We had 5 Nobel laureates and others who were involved. Through the Biden Cancer Initiative, we focused on turning the Moonshot into a movement to create the cancer research and care system that most people think we already have and that they all deserve. But they don't know we don't have it till they try to deal with it. And everywhere we'd go, people would share their stories in grocery stores, airports, rope lines. While we heard stories of loss and despair, the stories began to change just a little bit, a change of feeling, real hope. But not because of me and Jill, but because of all of you in this room and so many more at home. Doctors, researchers, advocates, caregivers, patients, survivors. And that's why today I'm proud to announce our plan to supercharge the Cancer Moonshot as a central effort of the Biden-Harris administration. It's bold, it's ambitious, but it's completely doable. Just as we harnessed the science to develop cutting-edge COVID-19 vaccines and treatments, we'll bring a fierce sense of urgency to the fight against cancer. The goal is to cut the cancer death rate in half in the next 25 years, at least by 50%, and to turn more cancers from death sentences into chronic diseases that people can live with, to create a more supportive experience for patients and their families. And by doing these things and more, to end cancer as we know it. And here's what we're fighting and how we know what cancer looks like today. A disease where we often diagnose it too late. We have too few effective ways to prevent it. The stark inequities based on race, disparity, zip code, sexual orientation, gender identity, and other factors still persist. And we know too little about why treatments work in some patients in that same patient with the exact same diagnosed cancer, it doesn't work in that patient.
What does biological identity have to do with anything? If you identify as a unicorn, you're just immune to cancer? Stupid.
Some cancers, where we don't do enough to help patients and their families navigate through the process. We don't learn enough from patients' experiences or their data. In fact, when we first started this work, one of the first things we did was make sure that doctors and researchers work together, share information, allow patients to share their data with other doctors and researchers to help others. But there's so much more to do. I remember we were going through this in the Moonshot, and my saying that I was told, oh, well, patients don't want to share their data. They all want to share their data. Sometimes y'all don't want to share what you know. And for each.
Who would clap for that? Old creepy man whispering in the mic. Everyone applaud.
Today, we know we can change its trajectory. For example, to prevent cancer, scientists are exploring if the new mRNA vaccine technology that brought us safe and effective COVID-19 vaccines could also be used to stop cancer cells when they fail, when they first arrive. Get them then. To target the right treatments to the right patients. We're learning more about how to use genetics, immune response, and other factors to tell which combinations of treatments are likely to work best for a particular individual. To address inequities, we can target prevention, detection, and treatment efforts so that all Americans, whether they're urban, rural, or tribal communities, have equal access to cancer diagnosis, therapeutics, clinical trials. There's so much more we can do. As I said at the beginning, this is the presidential priority. I will do my part on funding and using my authorities as president to break log jams and speed breakthroughs. I challenge and encourage all of you to continue to do your part. This will be bipartisan. This will bring the country together, and quite frankly, other nations as well. Here are some of the actions that I'm announcing today. First, I formed a new cancer cabinet, which is convened we will convene in the coming weeks to include members of the cabinet who are here today, all the people sitting on the stage here. They'll drive a whole of government effort to unleash every possibility within our power, within their jurisdictions. The White House Office of Science and Technology Policy, led by senior scientist and advisor Dr. Eric Lander, sitting on the end there, will chart the path for the cancer moonshot for 2022 and beyond. I'm calling on Congress to fund my proposed ARPA-H, the Advanced Research Project Agency for Health. This will be a new kind of entity within the National Institute of Health, the NIH, with autonomy and authorities to drive unprecedented progress in biomedicine. It's based on DARPA. Most everybody knows in this town what DARPA.
Thank you so much, Lisa, for your donation and your support. I really appreciate you. Thank you for being here.
That has led to breakthrough technologies that protect our national security, from the internet to GPS and so much more. ARPA-H will have a singular purpose to drive breakthroughs to prevent, detect, and treat diseases including cancer, Alzheimer's, and diabetes, and other diseases. And I think there's strong bipartisan support for this. But it costs money. And these are the best dollars we could spend. So we got to get it done. We got to get it done now, not wait any longer. I'm also calling on the scientific and medical communities to bring the boldest thinking to this fight. I'm calling on the private sector to develop and test new treatments, make drugs more affordable, and share more data and knowledge that can inform the public and benefit every company's research. And I'm respectfully calling on people living with cancer and caregivers and families to keep sharing their experience and pushing for progress. You'll have a voice and a seat at the table, I promise you. And here's the one thing we can all do. America has missed more than 9 million cancer screenings in the last 2 years because of COVID, 9 million. We have to get cancer screenings back on track and make sure they're accessible to all Americans. So today I'm announcing a call to action for cancer screening and early detection. If you were supposed to get a cancer screening during the pandemic, call your primary care doctor today. If you're that doctor, talk to your patients. Get a screening scheduled, whether it's in the office, at home, or through telehealth visit. Because the Affordable Care Act now will cover most private insurance plans as well as Medicare and Medicaid to cover the recommended preventive care screening free of charge. I'm calling on companies, healthcare providers, nonprofits, and others to step up, including developing mobile units and pop-up clinics to reach people where they live. And if you're putting off screening because you're afraid of what you'll find, they'll find. Let me say this, and so many people are, put it off. Last November, I got a colon cancer screening. I'm glad I did. Trust me, I know cancer's scary. Going to the doctors can be scary. But screening is how you catch it early before it's too late. The earlier you get it, the better shot you have. Let me close with this. There's a quote that when I made one of these speeches years ago, 5, 6 years ago, was attributed to Yo-Yo Ma. I later was informed it was attributed to Vince Lombardi.
What's up, Becky? Thanks for being here.
I'll give the quote. It makes sense. Here's the quote.
What's up, Philip?
Practice makes permanent. Only perfect practice makes perfect.
Somebody slap this guy.
Take a hard look at your practice. Ask yourself if you're practicing perfectly. Or am I practicing to make the old way permanent? Old practices that created data silos, minimize the role of patients, foster the wrong kind of competition instead of the right kind of collaboration. I know we can get this right. I'm positive we can. By not losing sight of the ultimate goal, the patient's health. And by not losing sight of something else, I also believe. America is a single place on earth, single country that can be defined, as I told Xi Jinping, by one word: possibilities. Possibilities. When we work together in America, there is nothing beyond our capacity. Nothing. So let's show the world what's possible. Let's show the world that we're committed. Let's show that we can do big things. That in the United States of America, when we work together, there's nothing beyond our grasp. I mean, nothing beyond our grasp. And I know of nothing, as I think my colleagues would say, that's more bipartisan than take on this fight and fundamentally change cancer as we know it. It's a mission that can truly unify the nation. It shows us at our best working together and rather than working against one another. For every patient asking for one more day, I remember I've met with over 3,000 researchers in the various organizations. And they're good. They're devoting their whole lives to try to save things. And they work really long hours, but they're not practitioners. They've not had that patient come up and say, "Doc, can you give me just 2 more weeks?
Are they friend or foe?
So I can see my daughter married. Doc, all I need, can you do anything to give me just 6 more months to see the baby born? That's all I'm asking for, Doc." There's a sense of overwhelming urgency. Overwhelming urgency. If you're a patient or a family member of a patient. Every patient asking just for one more day. They're not asking to cure me. One more day. One more week. Can I get another year to be able to do boom? For survivors and caregivers who carry the physical and mental scars of treatments and recovery. And for those who have lost, and for the ones we can still save, let's end cancer as we know it. I refuse to believe this is beyond our capacity. I refuse to believe it. You know, when I put together the cancer moonshot, I was vice president. The president gave me authority to task anyone in the administration. When they found out I had the Department of Energy and Ernie Moniz, when they found out I had NASA and a lot of other agencies, looked at me like, "What's the matter with you?" I said, "Guess what? NASA knows more about radiation than all of you." Seriously. And Ernie Moniz, we're at a place where we get 1 billion calculations per second. And it goes on. Skills people never thought would impact on this can do it. So my plea to you scientists is share data as best you can. My plea to my members in Congress is let's fund this particular program and focus on it till we beat it. And to the American people, keep the hope alive. There is hope.
Hey, thanks for being here, Sky Queen.
And I'm confident, absolutely confident, if we make all our effort to deal with it, we can make fundamental changes in people's lives and change the families in this country in a much better position than they are today with regard to cancer. Thank you all for being here. I appreciate it.
You ain't shit, old man Walter. Nah, I don't think we're going to get any hot mics from him. We're going to give this a second, then we're going to switch back over to what's going on in Canada. Dynamite, does that mean we're going to need cancer screenings? And it'll be mandated to keep jobs next year? Probably.
Keep the faith. And my grandmother would yell, no, Joey, spread it. Go spread the faith, guys. We can do this.
Govern me harder, old man Walter. Thank you so much, Lone Wolf.
Your seats as the President, First Lady, the Vice President, and Second Gentleman.
We don't care about that. Thank you so much, Lone Wolf, for the $5. I really appreciate the donation and support. Thank you for being here. We're going to go back and cover what's going on with the truckers in Canada. And then 10 minutes or so, I have some responsibilities I have to go take care of, so we will be cutting the live off after that. But then when I get back to the house, we'll be going live again and covering what's going on, as well as continuing with the trucker convoy. Give me a second.
They're standing 6 feet from the person they are interviewing for COVID, presumably. They've got their microphone on a long distance thing. How's it going? I'm making a joke here about capturing fake news in its wild settings. I don't know if that's fake news. You mind being on? No, I'm good. Where are you from? Ottawa, here. All right, how do you find this? Good, very good. I'm happy. Here. Yeah, please, go for it. And then I'm going to go ask. Push tight if you don't mind. Oh, here we go. I'm going to hand it in. That's okay, I'm good. Thank you. Amazing. Nice to meet you. What's your name? Mark. Mark? Nice to meet you. You too. All right. I'm just going to go sneak over to the mainstream media. There seems to have a bodyguard who's wearing a face mask. That means that they might be working together. Are you with them? Who are they with? No, which one? CBC, CTV? Est-ce qu'ils sont français? Je voulais poser quelques questions. Okay, so they're with Radio-Canada. I'm going to ask them a few questions. Are you there for their security?
What's up, Newton? POTUS coughs in hand, wipes nose, then shakes hand with everyone. Every time. He can't help it. He don't know what's going on.
Are they interviewing him or is he? Okay, so they're in Radio-Canada, one arm of the CBC Canada broadcast.
Sultry stop sign. Yeah, I know. Out here just taking care of my responsibilities. What a hooligan.
Policing the police. Another Simpsons reference. I don't know if you guys can hear. Okay. I want to hear what the guy's saying.
Kath, I know we're getting a storm, but I have to go. Okay, there's people relying on me. It's not like I'm going to buy smokes down at the gas station. There's people that rely on me. I have to go. Mike, do I like Chris Webby? Yes, Chris Webby's dope. His music's awesome. I'm not like subscribed to him or anything, but every time I hear something from him, he's awesome. He's a good rapper.
I have Viva Fry. I'm live streaming right now. Do you mind being on the webs?
Sure.
All right, dude. What's your name?
My name's Pat.
Where are you from?
I'm from Ottawa.
Nice. What brought you out here, if I may ask the obvious question?
Curiosity and just supporting the cause. I don't live very far, so.
Okay. And you are supporting the cause.
Absolutely.
I appreciate you guys.
How local Ottawanians, how local from Ottawa are perceiving this? Is this interfering with anything of your everyday life?
I haven't noticed anything. If anyone does need to take Wellington to work, you might hurt them, but there's ways around it for sure. I haven't noticed anything on the highway or anything else.
I gotta get this.
No problem.
This is okay. Here we This is as bad as it gets, people. These are the violent protesters. That's quite a comical thing that she's doing in the background of the interview. Okay.
Oh, you think that's bad, David? You should see the flowers they have on the tomb of the unknown soldier. It's just horrific.
I got that, and I got what they did to Terry Fox.
Oh, I saw it too. The flowers and the Canadian flags at his feet. I mean, he only has one leg. He wouldn't even have been able to pick those up. It's just horrible.
It's what they said has been done. I have not seen a trace of evidence of it. Yeah. And if this is as bad as it gets, she's what's it called when you photobombing?
Yeah.
A CBC interview.
It's
but
great.
We'll make sure that they let them get their interview done.
Excellent. I heard John Gatz up the other day.
It was great. I love Gad. He's amazing.
Very good. Well, thanks for being out here.
Thank you very much. Good support. And now you heard it from the man in the city. There's anyone saying there's disruption?
We're fine. Anyone living around here is probably a little annoyed by the horns and stuff, but this is one of the most liberal ridings in Canada, so they asked for it.
Okay, we're gonna jail the bureaucrats. Is that your wife?
Girlfriend.
You mind on camera? No. No. You hesitated. Quite funny though. If that's as bad as it gets, I want to ask them. This is exactly what I wanted to ask them. So guys, stick around when they're done with the interview. I mean, there's a guy trying to get her to go away, but I don't know why this would be so disruptive. Your girlfriend's not happy with the media, it would seem. But still,
she believes the media has not been reporting accurately.
They have not been, and there's no question about it. But they're smiling. I mean, even the security guy's smiling about it. Oh, salut.
Hello.
Ça vous dérange d'être sur l'internet?
Ben non, pas du tout.
Okay,
Bonjour, mon cher monsieur.
I asked if they mind me on the internet. She says, not at all, my dear
Yeah,
monsieur.
it's okay.
Vous voulez
Hope you're hilarious.
La chute? Elle should be une belle terrain de golf à la chute.
Oh, yes. Give me a kiss.
Mwah. Mwah. Nice.
My grandma loves
I haven't kissed anybody. Well, other than my wife. You know, this is normal human interaction, people. And I bet there's a lot of people out there watching. They're like, oh, they're going to get the coronavirus.
Oh my God, I'm not vaccinated anyway.
Oh my goodness! Now this might be.
No shit in my body.
Are you out?
Grandma's fine to him.
For 2 days we came for the truckers. Yeah, for our liberty.
Amazing.
Yes,
The border
freedom.
people.
It's amazing. I mean, I
Everybody's in love. Everybody hugs everybody. It's happiness.
I haven't seen so many maskless people. I mean, moi je viens de Montréal, puis les gens.
On toutes des masques.
It's all the best.
Ah ouais,
everyone in Montreal. I mean, I say without judgment. Everyone's allowed to do what they want to do. I feel it's an indication of fear. It's good.
True.
How you doing?
All right, everyone. I have to leave. I held out as long as I could. If you guys want to continue on with Viva and see if he gets to take Grandma home, I have the source right below me on the screen if you guys want to continue on and see what's going on. What's up, B Diggs? I'm not sure how long it's going to take me to take care of all this stuff, but when I get back to the house, I will be texting everyone in the Discord, letting them know I've made it back home and in a position to find more lives and stuff. So if you're not a part of the Discord, you should definitely join the Discord. I pop in all the time. It's the best way to stay up to date. Lots of resources. Is definitely worthwhile. For anybody that's on the sidelines about Discord, just talk about it in the chat. There's tons of hooligans in there. Everybody who goes really appreciates it. So you don't have to sit on the sidelines and and wait for someone to light that fire. There's plenty of hooligans in the chat that will explain how everything works over there. Thank you so much, Larry, for the $2. I really appreciate the donation and the support. Thank you for being here. But yeah, everyone, join the Discord. Please follow and subscribe on whatever platform you're currently watching right now in order to be connected. We try to go live every single day. A lot of times we go live more than once in a day. But either way, big shout out to everyone that made donations, joined the membership program, or purchased any merch. I really appreciate all of you, and I would not be able to do this without you. So thank you guys so much for all this support. I'm going to go face this winter weather, and I'll be back as soon as I can. Hope you guys enjoy your day. Go ahead and get out there and see what's going on. Keep your eyes open, since there's so many things happening on our side and their side of the border. Stay up to date. I appreciate you guys, and I'll see you on the next live. Until then, stand tall, shine bright, and that's a wrap.